Blades of Fire. This game has a parry, so it makes it into parry review. Surprise, surprise, the full version of this game is actually way better than the demo. That doesn't usually happen. And it's not because the game is different or anything, it's just that this game, having more content compared to the demo, makes all the difference in the world. Okay, so I'm gonna start yapping, and you just look at the parry footage while I yap. So in this game, in order to attack, you use the face buttons, and only the face buttons. And you can attack the enemy's head, his abdomen, his right arm, or his left arm. And each face button corresponds to each one of those directions. So you attack in this game kind of like a compass. One flaw this game has is that you can't remap the buttons in your controller. Maybe you can with keyboard, but I've only played controller so far. And the game does not allow me to remap anything. You can't remap the face buttons, the shoulder buttons, the triggers. You can't remap anything. And that is a huge flaw, in my opinion, because the dodge button and the parry button are kind of like in the same side of the shoulders of the controller. So for the demo, I gave this game a 7.5 out of 10 on the parry metric, and on the fun and enjoyment scale, I gave it like a 5 or a 6. I'm gonna amend the fun and enjoyment scale. We're gonna leave the parry metric at 7.5 out of 10 on the parry. Maybe we can bump it to an 8 out of 10 on the parry, but I'm not quite sure, and I'll explain why. But on the fun and enjoyment scale, we're amending that score and bumping it up all the way to 8 out of 10 because this game is a banger. So let's start talking about the parry. The parry in this game is kind of like Sekiro or Lies of P, except that when you successfully parry, the enemy will be staggered. It's not like Sekiro where you have to like parry 7 attacks in a row. No. Here, if you parry one attack, the enemy will be staggered successfully, and if other enemies are close to that enemy that you parried, all the other enemies in the surrounding area will also become staggered. At least for regular enemies. I don't know if you parry a regular enemy, if a boss or an elite enemy will be parried along with the regular enemy that you parried. I don't know. But for certain, when you parry regular enemies, if there's other enemies nearby, they're all going to get staggered from the parry. So your stamina is the blue bar, and when you successfully parry, it refills all your stamina, and you have like infinite stamina for like 5 seconds. So now you can attack your enemy. You'll probably attack your enemy more than once. What I do recommend though, if there's multiple enemies around, don't do... Well, let me add some more details. When you attack, when you press the Y or A button on Xbox or triangle or X on PlayStation, you attack the head or the abdomen. The way the game behaves, the game considers these heavy attacks. Whereas if you attack the right arm or the left arm, meaning pressing X or B on Xbox, or square and circle on PlayStation, those are considered light attacks. You can also run while attacking, and that sort of changes the dynamic of your attacks, but I don't recommend you do that much unless it's for weaker enemies. But basically, when you're doing your normal attacks, if there's a lot of enemies, I recommend you don't attack the enemy's head or abdomen. Just stick to attacking left and right, because it's easier to block. You can block quicker after those attacks, and you could also dodge quicker after those attacks. If you do the heavy attacks, you're going to leave yourself vulnerable. So if you're fighting multiple enemies, just stick to doing light attacks. So here's how I do it. I'll approach an enemy, and if he's weak, I'll do a heavy attack and just insta-kill him. Then the rest of the enemies will gang up on me, and then what I do is I parry the closest enemy to me, and once I parry him, everybody is staggered. And then I do 2 light attacks and go back to the defensive. Go back to being defensive, either dodging or parrying. And that's how the flow and rhythm of this game works. You want to like parry, do 2 light attacks, and then go back to like being vigilant and parrying and dodging. When there's a bunch of weak enemies, you can time the distance, right? You want to use stabbing attacks for this because there's 2 types of damage. There's stabbing and slashing. And then there's the hammer, which does blunt damage, but it's basically just a slash that's blunt. It's a blunt slash, basically. The point is, your character, his attack movement will be one of two things. He'll either slash, which has an area of range, it's a wide attack, or he'll stab, which is a pointy forward thrusting attack. But basically, that's the rhythm of this game. For regular enemies, you want to do 2 light attacks, then go back to being defensive. And for bosses, you want to do 1 light attack, and then go back to being defensive. And if you do this, you should do pretty well and survive a lot of difficult encounters. If you get overzealous and you get greedy and you start trying, oh, I'm going to do a 3-hit combo, or I'm going to do 2 heavy attacks in a row, you're screwing yourself, okay? You're gonna die if you fight like that. Oh, here's one thing. There's like a scribe. There's like this side character that follows you around. He gives you advice and stuff. That dude scares me all the time because in the shadows, he looks like an enemy. And he just keeps me constantly paranoid. So I like the parry more in this game than in Lies of P. You know what? Let's just bump the parry metric up to an 8. 8 out of 10 on the parry metric. Because being able to stagger enemies it's great. There's like that blue orb when you successfully parry. It gives you infinite stamina. This game does not have an official counterattack because, again, if there's multiple enemies and you successfully parry and you do a heavy attack, some of the elite enemies are quicker to respond. And I'm playing on Iron or Steel, which is like the hardest difficulty in this game. I'm playing the hardest difficulty. And the elite enemies, they're sneaky, and even if you successfully parry, if they catch you doing a heavy attack, they might hurt you. Oh, so here is the forging minigame, right? This is a minigame for how to forge. Just watch what I do here. I'm forging a hammer or something, or maybe this is an axe. I know it looks square, but the final product might be like an axe, the twin axes. That's what I'm forging here. And initially, you saw that all the metal was at the right side of the blade. And I'm pushing it from the right to the left. And this is how you successfully forge a blade and you make it 4 or 5 stars. It's by doing this. You want to take the bars, the gray bars that are tall, and you want to make them small, and you want to take the small bars and make them big. And you do this by manipulating the left and right analog sticks. You want to move them left and right, up and down until you get the right marks. You see how half of the bars are red and the other half is gray? You want to get them to the white line. Just do what I'm doing here. You'll get used to manipulating the left and right joysticks, and you'll begin to understand the logic of this. Just try to do what I do here, and you'll start to get it. It didn't make sense for me at first in the demo, but now now I can forge a 4 or 5 star blade almost every single time. Then if you do successfully forge it, you can then forge it from memory, so you don't have to do the minigame again. You do, however, each time you craft a new blade that you have never crafted before, even if it's the same category, like say you crafted a sword, and then there's a different style of sword. For each different sword, right? For each different style of sword, you have to redo the crafting minigame. You can only forge from memory once you have successfully crafted that type of blade at least once. I think this one that I'm crafting here is a regular sword. I'm not sure. It's either a regular sword or it's a great sword. For the other weapons, for the heavier weapons, this is probably not a great... This is probably a regular sword, what I'm crafting right now, because for the heavier weapons like the hammers and the great swords, and I think even the spears, when you start out, the bulk of the metal is in the middle. And what I do for those is I go to half, right? I find the gray bar in the middle, and one half I move to the right, and the other half I move to the left. And those are the harder weapons to craft. The ones that have all the metal in the middle. That is the hardest type of weapon to craft, and it's usually the heavier weapons. But just do that. Move one side to the right and then the other side of the metal, move it to the left, and you'll successfully craft a 4-star or 5-star heavy weapon as well. I think now what we're gonna see, let me check. Okay, now I'm gonna show you, see how all my great swords have a lot of good parry? And then I show you these other weapons, and these other weapons don't have parry. I mean, they have parry, but not as good as my greatsword. My greatsword is at 90% parry. And let me tell you, the difference is palpable. Like, you honestly can't parry in this game unless you get your weapon to 50% parry or higher. Once you're at 50% parry, the parry window is doable, but it's still tight. You have to parry you have to parry when the enemy's attack is right in your face, like when the enemy has his sword right in your mouth, right? The enemy has his sword right in your freaking mouth. That's when you want to block, and if you do that, you'll successfully parry. And that works when your weapon is at 50% parry. So, you know, try to wrap your head around how hard it is. Like, it's hard to parry. It's doable. It's perfectly doable. You can parry just fine in this game, but it's hard. I'm telling you, it's hard. But it gets an 8 out of 10 on the parry metric because it's very fun to parry in this game. So the initial footage of the combat that I show you here, I'm using the sword, but then I noticed that my greatsword, super unexpected to me because I thought, you know, I thought that the daggers had the best parry, but the first weapon that I've managed to get close to 100% parry is the curved greatsword. It has 90% parry, and it's so much easier to parry now. It's like, it feels like it's like 20 or 30% easier to parry now, which doesn't make sense because I have 40% more parry on my weapon now compared to the sword that I was originally using, which only had 50% parry. Now on my greatsword, I have 90% parry, but the parry only feels like it's 20% easier or so. That's just to give you an idea of how the feeling for the parry in this game works. However, it does make a difference, and I highly recommend that you get good parry weapons in this game. It makes a huge, like, if you're not parrying in this game, you're not playing this game properly. The only enemies that you shouldn't be parrying, or the only people that you want to avoid parrying, is like the super strong enemies because they have weird attacks. Some of their attacks aren't even blockable. Right now for my greatsword, it has 90% parry and it has 100% block. I don't know if that makes any difference, having 100% block. I don't know if that allows me now to block or parry attacks that were previously unblockable. I haven't tested it out yet. Usually, an attack in this game that cannot be blocked or parried is an overhead attack. That's the type of attack that you want to avoid. So I would have to find enemies that do overhead attacks and try blocking and parrying against them and see if it works. But yeah, even though I reviewed the demo, I had to do, and this video is kind of long, I had to do it because I've been playing this game almost non-stop the past 2 days. I'm having a lot of fun with it, and I wanted to do justice. I wanted to do right by this game and give it a proper review. So 8 out of 10 on the parry metric and 8 out of 10 on the fun and enjoyment scale. So thanks for watching, take care, and enjoy.